The chair recognizes Hegedus of Delaware.
Thank you, Sir Chair. Tim Hegedus of the Delaware delegation. Now, I, just like everyone else, likes to have lots of fun at Kona. And I like to have fun proposals, and I like having fun amendments. However, this is a very well thought out and very well written proposal. And yes, while I enjoy having fun and everything, I don't think that we should support an amendment that could potentially harm a very well-written proposal that this author has put so much effort in and so much time to bring to plenary. You guys have voted the way it is to plenary, and so now you should hear it and consider it seriously as the proposal. I'm sorry if I made this more serious, and it was good to have some fun, but please consider this proposal the way it is without this amendment. Thank you.
The chair will now recognize a 1-minute pro speaker on the amendment. The chair recognizes Beatty of Florida.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. My name is John Beatty, and I am from Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, though this might have appeared to be a joke, and maybe it was meant to be, I believe that this could have some very positive effects. I'd like to tell you a little story about Rome's founding. Rome was founded by criminals. It was populated by criminals, and it became the greatest nation in the world for many hundreds of years. I believe that America can use this same principle to do great things on the moon, and thus expand our power and our base of influence to greater limits beyond this planet. And I yield any remaining time to the chair.
The delegate yields his time. The author is now entitled to a 1-minute statement on the amendment.
Alex Rodriguez, Valley Nations. Thank you, Sir Chair. If you all believe that this is in the spirit of Kona, I encourage you to pass this. However, like the previous speaker did say, I've worked for months and months researching and working on this proposal, and I am a little upset that this was brought up after making it to plenary. And I think that it does take away much from my proposal. However, if you all think that it should be part of the proposal, then you should vote it into the proposal and you should pass the amendment because that's what we're here for, each other, and not one particular person. So it's whatever you all think. So I yield the remainder of my time to the forward.
The delegate yields his time to the chair. We are now in order to vote on this amendment. The question before the plenary session is whether this amendment does pass. All those in favor? No, you do not. You are not entitled to a closing statement. The question before this plenary session is whether the amendment does pass. All those in favor, in a normal speaking voice, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay. This amendment fails. It is still considered highly uncouth to spirit finger the failure of any motion. The chair will now recognize a con speaker on the floor. The chair recognizes Hummel Hall of Wisconsin.
Delegation. I motion for an amendment.
Is there amendment at the parliamentarian's desk? Is the amendment germane? The clerk will read the amendment.
The amendment reads, on lines 16 to 17, replace, quote, require inmates to pay 90% of their wages back to the prison, unquote, with, quote, require inmates to pay 65% of their wages back to the prison and 25% back to the hiring business, unquote.
Is there a second to hear this amendment? Second. All those in favor of hearing the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. The opinion of the chair, the nays have it. We shall now proceed to recognize another con speaker on this proposal. The chair recognizes Metzger of Oregon. Delegates?
Jeff Metzger, Oregon. May I reserve my right to yield any remaining time to the delegate from Missouri?
That is your right.
Great, thank you. While I do applaud the intent of this proposal, I do ultimately believe it's just plain wrong. First of all, I believe it is ultimately a tax on the American taxpayer at the cost of American jobs. Let me just put it this way. The money that gets paid to prisoners, 90% of that goes back to the federal government. None of that goes to stimulate the economy. None of it goes back to American businesses. None of it means that American businesses can spend more to rehire people. This ultimately will help destroy the economy, I believe. Also, since it requires 1%, 500 prisoners to get the 1% tax break, this means this will be at a cost of ultimately 500 American jobs or more at one sitting. I think that's just plain wrong. This will decrease the amount of jobs businesses have to hire regular tax-paying Americans. And with that said, I also believe it violates states' rights, since this violates the judge's discretions of sentencing criminals. And with all that said, I can yield the rest of my time to the delegate from Missouri. Thank you.
Delegate yields 25 seconds.
From the state of Missouri. Really quickly, the few issues that I have with this proposal are, one, 90% of the money has to be returned to the federal government. The federal government doesn't need any more money. If people who are doing these jobs make this money, they should be able to spend it, save it, or invest it in the way they wish. That would put that money back in the economy and make the economy better. With that, I yield the remainder of my time to the chair. Thank you.
The delegate yields his time to the chair. The chair will now recognize the next pro-speaker on this debate. Is there a delegate who has not yet spoken in this plenary or any General Assembly session? Chair recognizes Ellis of Minnesota.
Ellis, Minnesota. I reserve my right to yield the remainder of my time to Radetzky, Minnesota.
That is your right.
Imagine being convicted for one poor decision you decided to make. That decision would ultimately ruin your future in trying to apply for an occupation. This is a problem that current prisoners are having to face. Once out of prison, they are thrown out onto the streets with no connections in the workforce, no money to buy clothes for an interview, and no place to go. These ex-prisoners are forced to go back into illegal things that brought them to prison in the first place. This proposal changes that, for it gives hope to these convicts for a better life once they are released from prison, and a chance to change their future once and for all. I yield my time to Radetzky, Minnesota.
The delegate yields 75 seconds.
Radetzky, Minnesota. I am in complete support of this proposal for a few main reasons. First off being that this has proven to work many times over. Prisoners are currently working in multiple big-name corporation delegates. With the escalating recidivism rate, which is 43%, it is a vital issue that we need to eliminate the revolving door of prisoners released and recommitting the same crime once again. The revolving door occurs at an average of 3 years after being released from prison. This cycle is what is clogging our prison system. Regarding to the 10% remaining pay that the prisoner receives, it is about double after the tax cut the amount a job within a prison pays. This proposal also provides for the allocation of extra revenue to infrastructure and roads. The tragedy of the 35W bridge collapse of 2007 that struck my home state of Minnesota could have been prevented with the implication of allocated revenues towards roads and bridges. I urge you to pass this proposal due to the author's intention of rehabilitation of the convicted population. Thank you. I yield my time to the chair.
The delegate yields her time to the chair. The chair now seeks a con-speaker on the floor. Is there such a speaker? The chair seeks a speaker who has not yet spoken in either general or plenary session. The chair recognizes Bonar of Indiana.
Bonar of the Indiana delegation. I reserve my right to yield my time to Delegate Allen of Wisconsin.
That is your right.
While I admire the intent of this proposal, I go against it because of a major loophole in the tax code created by it. With a 1% tax cut for every 500 prisoners, a multi-billion-dollar corporation paying, for example, a 10% tax with thousands of employees can hire 5,000 prisoners and pay no taxes on millions of dollars in income. That is a major problem, and that is a major loophole in the tax code. That is why I object to this proposal. I yield my time to Delegate Allen.
Delegate yields 90 seconds.
Sam Allen, Wisconsin delegation. Thank you, Chair. Now, the author is one of the swellest guys that I've seen up here. He's really cool. And I really admire this proposal. But as my partner stated, this creates a more complex tax code when all we need is a less complex tax code that doesn't let businesses get away with this sort of thing. And also, in the proposal, it states that, right here, the money saved by the hiring of business from extra costs such as healthcare, dental care, and vacation days may be deferred to other workers, business expansion, or whoever said company sees fit. So, why in the world would a business hire a normal worker when they have to pay for things that normal people need, like the aforementioned benefits? This would create a system of scabs, making sure that our current unemployment rate does not come back because it creates a cheap labor force that the corporation does not have to pay any benefits for. I simply believe that this would not be best for the majority of Americans, and the prisoners themselves would hardly see any of the benefits themselves. So I just don't think this is the best decision for America, regardless of the author's best intent. So I yield my time to the chair.
The delegate yields his time to the chair. Total time for comment or debate on this proposal is now elapsed. The delegate, the author, is recognized for his 3-minute and 18-second summation.
Thank you. First of all, I hope it wasn't too overly during debate. I will cry on the fires tonight, not now. Also, number one, and most importantly, do not confuse illusion with hope. Also, for the person who says this will cost companies more, if the average pay of the average manufacturing worker is $76,000 a year, and they will also have to pay for their Social Security, 401k, and health care, among other things, and the average worker will only make $15,000 a year, yes, this will save a lot of money. Also, if we're saving $12,000 to $13,000 per prisoner, it does save costs. And a delegate said that prison in Pennsylvania cut down on costs because they reduced sentences. Reduced sentencing. Of course, reducing sentencing is going to cut down on costs. Having less prisoners will obviously cut down on costs. However, that doesn't fix the problem. It actually feeds the problem that we're discussing here. And also, like I went over for many, many times in my opening statement, this will not take away jobs from regular Americans. If right now we have an unemployment rate of 8.2%, and we build these factories and we hire prisoners, and then we hire managers, supervisors, guards, and then the money that we save goes back to education and infrastructure, that's a positive amount of jobs that we created, not a negative from America. So please listen to that. And those said that there would not be much incentive for prisoner workers to work here because they're only saving 10%. The average wage of a prisoner right now is about 30 to 50 cents on the dollar, and even if they're only making 10% of minimum wage of $7.25, they're still making 72 to 73 cents an hour, which is about double what many of them make. So that's a lot of incentive. And many people said this doesn't stimulate the economy. If the federal government and state government has to spend less on these prisons and can spend more on education and infrastructure and create jobs for thousands of regular Americans, yes, this does stimulate the economy. And the person who talked about businesses not paying any tax rate, the corporate tax rate is not 10%. The federal corporate tax rate is 15 to 35%, and the biggest companies will pay 35%. So that means they'll have to hire 17,500 prisoners, which will be very difficult to do. And then many delegates said that's not feasible. Well, Starbucks contractor Signature Packing Solution once hired Washington prisoners to package holiday coffees. Nintendo did the same with their Game Boys. Microsoft and Dell once hired prisoners. And in Texas, inmates produced brooms and toiletries. Inmates have produced missile cables. California inmates serve their own guards. Prisoners in Wisconsin in 2005 once helped build a Walmart. Prison industry produces 100% of all military helmets, ammo belts, and bulletproof vests. Honda has hired inmates. Hanukkah, Toys R Us, AT&T, TWA, and prisoners have also had jobs including desktop publishing, digital mapping, and computer-aided design work. Ladies and gentlemen, this is fact, this is true, and as they say, the truth shall set you free. I yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
The delegate yields his time to the chair. The question before this plenary session is whether proposal number 36 do pass. All those in favor of the proposal, please stand and say aye. Aye. Thank you. All those opposed, please stand and say nay. Nay. This proposal does pass.